Imagine you wake up and everything you know is gone. No phone, no address, no job, no grocery store within driving distance, no driving distance because there are no roads. Just a forest, a fire that is already going cold, and about 25 people who are watching to see what you do next. This is not a hypothetical disaster. This is Tuesday morning for roughly 95% of human history. For at least 300,000 years, every single human being who ever lived was born into a hunter-gatherer band, a small mobile group of people who moved across a landscape, following food, following seasons, following survival itself. No fixed address, no stored wealth, no government, no safety net except the 25 people standing around that fire with you. You would not last a month, not because you are weak, not because you are unintelligent, but because you are missing something so fundamental that you have probably never once stopped to notice it is gone. Let us start with the most obvious problem: food. A hunter-gatherer band does not shop. It does not farm. Every single calorie consumed by every single member of your group has to be found, tracked, caught, dug up, cracked open, or carried back from somewhere out in the landscape every single day. Anthropologist Richard Lee spent years living with and studying the Jew Hoansi, a San people of the Kalahari Desert, and his fieldwork published in 1968 revealed something that turned the entire field of anthropology on its head. These people, living in one of the harshest environments on the planet, were not spending their entire waking lives scrambling for food. They were working roughly 15 to 20 hours per week to feed themselves. The rest was rest, conversation, storytelling, and what Lee called leisure. But here is what that number does not tell you: what those 15 to 20 hours actually demanded of a person. Lee's study has sometimes been misread as evidence that the hunter-gatherer life was easy. It was not. Those hours were not spent clicking a mouse or standing at a register. They were spent walking enormous distances over rough ground, reading animal tracks, identifying hundreds of plants by leaf shape and root structure and season, carrying heavy loads through heat or rain, and performing physical labor that most modern people could not sustain for a single afternoon. And you would know none of it. James Suzman, an anthropologist who has also spent decades among the Jew hoansi and wrote extensively about their way of life in his book Affluence Without Abundance, describes the sheer depth of ecological knowledge that San hunters carry in their heads. A skilled tracker can read a single footprint and tell you not just what animal made it, but how long ago, how fast it was moving, whether it was male or female, whether it was injured, and roughly where it was headed. This is not magic. It is a lifetime of accumulated observation, starting in childhood, that you simply do not have. On your first morning in the band, you would be sent out to gather plant foods. Roots, tubers, berries, seeds, things that grow in the ground or on bushes and that your group depends on. You would walk out into the landscape and you would see plants, many plants, and you would have almost no idea which ones were edible, which ones were toxic, which ones required processing before they could be eaten, which ones were only nutritious at certain times of year, which ones indicated the presence of water underground, and which ones, if you ate them in the wrong combination or in the wrong quantity, would kill you. Your group knows all of this. They have known it since they were 4 years old. You would come back with a handful of things you recognized, probably less than half of what a competent gatherer would have collected, and the group would have to quietly compensate for what you failed to bring in. The second problem is physical. A study published by Herman Pontzer and his colleagues in 2012 tracked the energy expenditure of Hadza hunter-gatherers in Tanzania using doubly labeled water, a technique that measures actual calorie burn at the cellular level, and found something both expected and striking. Hadza men and women were significantly more physically active than Western adults, but their total daily energy expenditure was similar to or only modestly higher than sedentary office workers. The key difference was body composition. The Hadza carried almost no excess body fat. Their bodies were lean, efficient, and adapted over a lifetime of daily walking, lifting, and manual work. Their cardiovascular fitness, their muscular endurance, their ability to walk 10 to 15 kilometers a day over uneven terrain, and still have the focus and coordination to track an animal at the end of it. These were not things you could fake or fast forward your way into. On your third day, you would already be exhausted in a way that felt different from ordinary tiredness. Your feet would be shredded, your legs would be burning, and the group would still be moving because the group always moves. The third problem is social, and it is the one that would actually end you. Hunter-gatherer bands are not just survival units. They are extraordinarily sophisticated social systems with their own internal logic, their own norms, their own humor, their own deeply held ethics about how food is shared and how status is managed and how conflict is resolved. Polly Wiessner, an anthropologist who has studied the hoansi for over 40 years, has documented in detail how much of the band's social life revolves around what she calls leveling mechanisms, the active suppression of any individual who starts to seem too proud, too dominant, or too self-important. Hunters who return from a successful kill are expected to downplay what they brought home. Meat is shared not by the hunter, but distributed according to complex kinship and reciprocity networks. Anyone who acts as if they are better than others, or who hoards resources, or who fails to read the social temperature of the group with sufficient precision, faces escalating social consequences that can ultimately result in exclusion. And exclusion from the band in a hunter-gatherer context is not a social inconvenience. It is a death sentence. You would not know the kinship rules. You would not know who owes what to whom, who is in conflict with whom, whose name you should not say out loud because of mourning customs, whose opinion carries invisible weight in group decisions, how to correctly signal respect, or how to perform the dozens of small daily acts of reciprocity that maintain your position within the group. You would make mistakes that you would not even recognize as mistakes, and the group would notice. So let us reconstruct your 28th day. You have been in the band for nearly a month. You have contributed less food than every other adult. You have twice failed at tasks that children in the group perform without thinking. You have gotten someone's kinship relation wrong in a way that caused offense you did not understand. You have asked for food in a way that violated a norm you did not know existed. You are not disliked, exactly. But you are costing the group resources it cannot spare, and the band is beginning to move to a new territory, a seasonal shift that has been anticipated and planned for weeks, based on a knowledge of the landscape that you do not share. You do not know where the water sources are in the new area. You do not know the plant calendar of that terrain. You have not memorized the subtle landmarks that your group uses to navigate. And the pace at which they move, loaded with everything the band owns, covering ground efficiently in a way that is second nature to every other member, is a pace you are struggling to match. Here is the counterintuitive twist that almost no one expects. The hunter-gatherer life is not primitive. It is extraordinarily complex. The knowledge required to live it successfully is so deep, so layered, so specific to place and season and community, that it takes an entire childhood and most of an adolescence to accumulate. What we call civilization did not create complexity. It redistributed it. It extracted all of that ecological, social, and physical knowledge from individual human bodies and put it into books, institutions, supply chains, and specialized professions. You can order food without knowing how to grow it. You can navigate without knowing the land. You can participate in a community without understanding its deepest norms, because the norms are written down and enforced by strangers with badges. In a hunter-gatherer band, there are no strangers. There are no badges. There is only what you know, what you can do, and what you contribute, and the margin for someone who falls short of all three is almost non-existent. The good news is that your ancestors did this. All of them. Every single person in your family line, going back 300,000 years, survived in exactly this system, successfully enough to have children, who survived, who had children, until eventually one of those children was you. The knowledge is gone. The institutions replaced it. But the capacity, the social brain, the deeply wired need for reciprocity and belonging, the ability to read a room and feel the invisible weight of a group's mood, that is still in you. It never left. Imagine you wake up and everything you know is gone. The forest is there. The fire is cold. 25 people are watching. You would not last a month, but somewhere in your body, you already know exactly why that matters.